All right, our next speaker is Fredrik Olsson from Rice. Fun fact is that Fredrik worked at Gallagher while I did my master's thesis there. So that's nice. And he's going to talk about text data and text data quality.
Yes.
Yes.
People in the back, if you can hear me, raise your hands. Good, thank you. How much time do you have?
20 minutes.
20 minutes? Okay, so I can talk about this at length. So I tried to structure this as a like a newspaper article, so I keep the juicy bit first and then we just cut it off.
I don't think the mic is on.
It is on? Not close enough, like this? In my mouth?
Yay!
I can actually hear myself. It's actually creepy every time. Okay, so imagine you have a brand new car. Let's hear a favorite color.
Orange.
Orange. Or an orange car. That's original. Let's say you have a brand new or orange car. It has 27 gears, 17 wheels, whatever. It's a fancy car, and you have all these details on it. And then when you try to take it out for a ride, you discover there's no roads. This is the elephant in the room. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about algorithms and technology. We never talk about data. So this poor analogy, the roads is the data. So we need to talk about the data. This is the elephant in the room. And what I'm trying to convey to you today is something I have experienced past 7 years when I was responsible of getting real-time text data into a social media monitoring service for training models and actually being on time and low latency and everything. Data is quite hard to get. My background is that I'm a computational linguist, which means that when the times are good, I'm sought for. When the times are bad, I'm between chairs and have no job, essentially. So I'm a bit of a linguist, and I'm a bit of a computer science guy. And now all the planets are aligned and everything is good, and we're talking AI and we're talking data. And I will try and show you something of where you can get the data, what kind of data you can get and can't get, and something about the data hygiene that you have to think of when you start collecting data. And I'm also in a difficult age. I need glasses sometimes and sometimes not. So if I tend to not see your raised hands because I want questions whenever you have them, just shout out. I'm trying to organize this as something like a newspaper, as I said. So if you will remember anything today, it's this. And the next slide is also very important, so remember that as well when you rise. Okay, getting text data, online text data. People say, well, just download it. Okay, web scraping is hard, it's non-trivial. That's why there are people in the business of selling it to you. Speaking of selling, data is expensive. If you come from the academics that I did before actually trying to buy data, you are surprised of the amounts of money that people could ask for some data. For instance, I don't mention any numbers in print because that's one of the things. They're very tailored to you as a client. There's almost no service out there that provides a pricing list, but that's for a reason. So you could pay up to easily tens of thousands of dollars per month for getting Chinese data, for instance. Also, they like to, I realize this is very negative, but whatever. They try to lock you in 12, 24 months. You have to pay a premium even to talk to Twitter, for instance. If you want to have data on the go, it's even more expensive. Also, not a negative thing, let's talk about it in constructive terms. It's fun to do integration, right? You have lots of integration work to do. And if you're lucky and do integration and they have breaking changes in their API, you get swag. I got a sweater. Things differ because they want to be different. The different guys selling data, they might have the same blogs, the same newspapers, they have different enrichments, like named entities or sentiments. They are not the same and available in all languages. That's just a trick to get you to buy into their service. And the last thing is that there are no service level agreements in this business. When we had this at Gavagai, we had this monitoring service, we repeatedly had clients coming to us and saying, why isn't this particular news piece in our feed? We didn't get it from our providers, and they don't provide any service level agreements on that. The only service level agreement I've seen ever is the one from Twitter regarding latency and uptime. Okay, so that's the things that you need to remember. The rest will be positive and fun. We're also hiring. I'm with RISE, Research Institute of Sweden, and working with the AI project there. We're looking for a very sharp knife. Someone here, maybe, that has done their master's thesis or about to do their master's thesis that want to work with artificial intelligence and natural language processing, contact me on that email address. This is also the last slide, so you will see it again. And to top it off, a friendly face and a nice quote. I'm sure you've heard of this, and since I'm a bit short on time, I will not diverge into his doings. If you haven't heard about this man, check him out. Okay, so let's get to it. If you want to get good data, you have to do it iteratively. You will have to take shortcuts, just take the right ones. And after this talk, you will know something about these shortcuts. You will know something about what kind of data you can get and cannot get. And you will know something about the hygiene factors. That is keeping track of the provenance of the data, who touched it, and what did he or she do. Keeping track of the quality over time of the data, and so on. I hear myself breathing, that's also very annoying. You will try next. Okay, so this is preaching to the choir. Again, you know all the big players in the text field, Google, Facebook, Microsoft. They open source their algorithms and their frameworks, and that's for a reason, because they know that you can't ever reproduce what they have because you don't have the access to their data. So again, the data is the discriminator between businesses. That's why they're so tight on their data. There's also links in this presentation. That's because if you want this one and read the links, you should email me and I will send you a PDF. So if you start out a project, be it social media monitoring or just having fresh data in different languages to train your models on, you want to see the drift of vocabularies and terminology, for instance, over time. What kind of data do you need? Well, it depends. Data is different. Texts are very different. And this is why I love this, because this is the first time that we can actually aggregate the language behavior of populations ever. And we can see trends, and we can see how they use language. We can learn more about language, and we can use that to make better service and better products. So, you're looking for news, perhaps? You're looking for Twitter? Everyone is using Twitter. How many here are actually tweeting regularly? Like 10? You see, what's the value in Twitter? Nobody knows. Everyone has to have it because they might miss something. All kinds of texts have different purposes, and I usually talk about texts and other kinds of data in different terminologies because text is very deliberate. There is someone sitting there writing this tweet or this blog post or whatever, so it's like a lean forward process. You have to do it. It's deliberate, it's hard, it's expensive in terms of whatever you have to think your cognitive processes. Whereas if you have other kind of data, like your recording of this room, for instance, it's a very passive data collection, so it's cheaper. I'm sure we will hear about the different obstacles in that kind of processing as well later on. But text is hard, and it's expensive, and it's tricky to get. So what would you think about once you start setting up shop? Say you want languages from India. Well, the internet penetration isn't that big, perhaps, in some regions of India. There are lots of large languages there, but you don't see it much on the interwebs. You can check the word stats, for instance, to see what kind of internet penetration you should get there, because that's one clue as to what kind of data coverage you might find. You can look at popular sites that start crawling those and so on. You should think about if you should collect once for a project or continuously, the different kinds of decisions involved there. This is from January, I think. Yes, I have my glasses. Yes. The number one social media platform in different parts of the world in January this year. Anyone knows Qzone? What is it?
It's like MySpace or something. Facebook. You can share your links, your photos. It's based on QQ.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Vkontakte I know is the Russian counterpart in essence of Facebook. And number two, perhaps even more interesting, Reddit is big. It's the second largest social network in Australia. When I think about language and I think about social media, I think about news media, I have my ideas. I think I'm a bright guy. I have some ideas about this, and it turns out that my hypotheses are more often than not very wrong. It's extremely often. So I'm getting a bit humble about what I know about data. I didn't know about the Qzone, for instance, until I saw this picture. And so what kind of data is hard to get? Well, you can't get chat data, for instance. You can't get historical data. Historical data is really, really hard to get. There are some vendors that says it. I will mention a few later on. Data that is actually geotagged, that you have a geographic location on, is really, really hard to get as well. You might get some from Twitter, but not much. Some of the big players are fencing in their data more and more. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I think it is 2 years ago that Facebook closed their crappy search API. It's really hard to get data that you can slice it along demographic variables, like gender and age and income. Sorry. Okay, so after this image, I can actually stop talking, because this is what took me a long time to get to. But you get it in one nice image. This is some of the providers that can provide you with text data. I have interacted with most of them. I have war stories about most of them, particularly the American ones. And I will mention a few of them later on. There are different kinds of services. The online data providers are actually either selling their own data, like Knip is doing, which is selling Twitter data, or aggregating data, like Webhost is doing. You can also provide people or services with your own URLs. Import IO, APLakes, connotate, prompt cloud, and so on. If you have a bunch of URLs, you can give them to them. They will crawl it and clean it and provide you with an API so you can fetch it. Sometimes there are no data out there, and you have to ask for it. And you can do it using surveys. But for a survey to be a good thing, you have to have a panel. You have to have a number of people to ask, and there are people doing that as well. And once you get the data, you might want to annotate it, do something with it, and that's also usually a very manual, very laborious task. It's quite expensive. There are a number of players. I think the first one was Amazon Mechanical Turk, the artificial intelligence company. Apple Incorporated is specializing on language. Figure 8. What was it called before? Crowdflower, yes. And then we have Untitled, which I'm very excited to hear more about later on. So let's talk about Knip. GNIP was one of 4 companies having a license to sell tweets. One of the companies was bought by Apple and shut down, or at least integrated in their business. Another one is a Japanese company that are not allowed to sell outside of Japan. The third one is DataSift that lost their license. And the remaining one, GNIP, was bought by Twitter in 2014 for some money. You can go there, you can ask for data. You will not see a pricing list, but you could imagine they start around $3,000 a month to talk to them. Say you pay $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 per month, and you get some millions of tweets as well. If you want historical data, you will pay even more. They have more sources than just Twitter. They have what they call managed access to Facebook, YouTube, and so on. DataSift was one of the companies selling tweets. After they sold tweets and lost their license, they hooked up with Facebook and was the only provider of Facebook data, but they didn't sell actual texts. So I wasn't quite interested in it, because one of Facebook's core businesses is privacy. They have all the consumer data under the hood. They will not let it out. So you could, except for the breaches. In this case, you could ask questions. You could slice their data in English on 60 or 70 different attributes. I want to know what people in the Stockholm area who are between this and this age thinks about this kinds of cars on a humid day, and they broke up with their girlfriend. Like this. I don't know why they shut that down. It was a quite expensive service. I heard rumors about it starting at 1 million crowns per month. Something like that. No, sorry, that's too much. 100,000. Just. They were acquired by a company called Meltwater. How many here knows about Meltwater? It's a very interesting company, a Norwegian company. I think they've grown organically, which is a good thing. DataSift also provides data from LinkedIn. That's not text data, but they provide aggregated data from LinkedIn. And they still also have some services related to Twitter and tweets. They have managed access and so on. They have news articles from Nexus, which is a high-quality news feed provider. Another company which I like a lot is Talkwalker. They used to be called Prediction. It's a company based in Luxembourg. And since they're European, in a sense, they're interested in the coverage of a large variety of languages. So they claim to have under 187 languages. I think this figure is a bit old. 40 million documents per day. It's more now, I think. They were the first actually to incorporate image processing in their stream, so you can actually search for your logos if you were a company or a brand, and you could get Instagram. If Instagram images were showing a Coca-Cola logo, you would have that in your feed, for instance. But monitoring and analytics is their primary business, which means that selling data as well is like cannibalizing on your customer stock. Another company I really like a lot is Twingly, based in Linköping here in Sweden. They were primarily working with blogs previously, but now they're turned to more than blogs, so they have forum and news and some social feeds as well. Not as expensive as the other companies, very easy to talk to. Another one I really like is webhost.io. It's an Israeli company. They have really understood this, how the web works. You go to the page, you see a pricing list, you sign up, you start out for free, you pay $20 or $50 to get going, and then of course you can wrap it up. Today they announced their second version of the dark web crawler, so you can actually get dark web data from, I think, from 6 or 7 dark web networks, which is quite interesting. In this case, their enrichments, by the way, I'm not affiliated with them, so I don't earn any money from this, but the enrichments they claim to have here is you can search for bank accounts, you can search for telephone numbers or social security numbers and email addresses and so on the dark web. So you can actually have it as a monitoring tool. They are also the single company I found that actually sells historical data older than 30 days. So you can go there and get news data from 4 years back. And if you want things for free, you should go here. It's not really fresh data all the time, and it's very centered on English data, but they have petabytes of data, and it's for free. A few more of these services, and then I will import IO. If you're not keen on programming, but you want to have your data from certain sites, you can use import IO to sort of extract your data yourself. You can get an API or run their crawlers continuously and get the data. Quite easy. This one is one of the coolest companies. When I say it, it feels like I'm talking about cool data companies. It feels like get alive. Anyways, what they do when scraping text data from web pages, web pages are made for rendering in a web browser. So scraping the data from the DOM is quite hard. But what they do, as far as I understand, is that they take a web page, they render an image in memory, and then they use visual analytics on the image to see where is the text, and then they go back and get the text.
And they're really good at it.
They're really good at it.
Really good at it.
And they know also how to make money from the technique. And this is quite interesting because you can send them individual URLs and get the data back. And you can also tell them, well, crawl this top domain for me, and then I can get all of it. And they also claim to have the biggest knowledge graph in the world, bigger than Google's, and you can get access to it.
That's probably bullshit, though.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. So if you have to ask for data, this is a good company. It's a Swedish company, I think, still. It usually used to stand for consumer intelligence, might still do. You can go to their site and sign up. I'm not sure about the onboarding, but then once that is done, you get a web interface. You can say, I want people who are representative of Sweden, and you get a panel of 2,000 persons, and you can send them your survey and get whatever answers you need. They're not doing the surveying themselves because they do not want to cannibalize on their customers. And it's surprising the amount of information that people are letting go of. So you can actually slice the panels on different kinds of diseases if you want to talk to 50 persons with this and this disease, for instance. Okay, so you have your text data. You might want to complement it with something else. There are different things you want to do. Open data, for instance, financial data. X-Ignite is one way of getting it. Mixed rank for sales and marketing. Lots and lots and lots of different kinds of data. Google Dataset Search launched, I think, a month ago. Have anyone tried it? Yes. Microsoft Research also has something, open data. Quandl, for instance, Shovel AI, is some people from Shovel AI here? Yes, okay, so people are getting to aggregate the data sets, and I like it a lot. All of these sort of course links, so if you want a presentation, to click on the links, just email me. Well, that's not so interesting. This is interesting. This is a year or so old, so I guess it's have shifted more towards my end now. It's this is from the point of view of investors or finance guys wanting all the data to try and draw conclusions on what people are talking about or doing to make models that they can actually make money from. So, for instance, if you're looking for stock prices, you can go to this address. They are ubiquitous, like Hygiene Factors. You need this data if you're in the finance business. A year or so ago, something that were quite cool but not really used is sentiment data or transportation data. And the really cool things, the cool guys and girls, they might have looked at nanosatellite data to see how cars moved, whatever they try to build financial models on. So there are a host of data out there. And this is what I started with. the negative things again. 24 minutes, okay, soon done. Another thing that I didn't mention in the first image is that you have to read the terms of service really carefully. People are getting shut off from the data providers quite often due to violating the terms of services. This is some prominent example. For instance, if you're starting a company, you're buying data from Twitter, then you are not allowed by any means to sell that data or analysis of it to state authorities. So you have to have a special contract. Okay, some more negative stuff. The data scene, the text data scene, the social media scene is getting more and more closed in. It's like silos. It's really hard to get data that actually matters. It's really hard to get it. So like the people having the best data, when they die, they are the best. They are the winners. So you can't share data. It's really hard to share data. Have you ever tried to share a Twitter data set? Well, you can't do it because it violates the terms of service. You can share only the IDs of the tweets, and then you have to download them again. For instance, that's one thing. Political factors are actually impacting this quite a lot. Okay, so some hygiene factors. I think this relates to the previous talk quite well. If you're going to collect data, start doing it early. Collect everything you have. You never know what you're going to get, depending, of course, on GDPR. Your data will be noisy. Your initial hypothesis of what the data is actually about will be wrong. So make sure to immerse yourself in the data early on. Try to keep track of what's happening with the data. Who touched it? What did he or she do? This goes into versioning of the data and the software that processes it. Pachyderm and DataKit are two such kits or softwares, open source software that you can use. Pachyderm is more or less like a kit for data and data pipelines. Keep track of data characteristics. There's a project called Rate Expectations. So you can have like, not unit testing, but in a sense like testing on the fly of your data. Like this file should have these and these columns. If it doesn't, then trigger an alarm or something. Facilitate collaboration, because you want to strive for reproducibility. If you make a model predicting something, you want to make sure it's possible to reproduce it. If you want to have a second opinion on your test or on your model or anything that's mission critical, you have to make sure it's reproducible. You can talk about data readiness. Are you aware of the NASA's technology readiness levels? Which is this essentially. It's a good way of setting the expectations of a customer or a stakeholder. There is some work being done on it in terms of the data, garbage in, garbage out, more or less nuanced. I think NASA was the first organization doing it. TRL 1 to 9. 1 is essentially going out, getting a beer, writing in the idea on the backside of a napkin. 9 is you put the guy on the boat. So everything in between are good talking points. And I had some slides for that. I will skip them and show you the second most important slide again. Yes. Well, that's me.